Hello SGD, and let's have a look at the megaliths, and let's look at the Alexander column, St Petersburg, Russia, erected 1834. Single piece of red granite column is 25.5 meters or long and 3.5 meters wide diameter. Single piece of red granite. The Wikipedia entry will say it's weighing 600 tons metric, or 660 tons TONS. But well, as these things, you've got to check a little bit, and so we can work out the volume. It's a cylinder, it's not tapering. So the volume is, given those measurements, 242 cubic meters. Granite weighs 2.65 to 2.7 tons a cubic meter. Could go higher than that and stick with a more conservative number. So that's 641.5 to 653.6 metric tons. In short, or US tons, that's 707 to 720, or 630 to 643 UK, or long tons, but nearly 1.5 million pounds, or somewhere between, well, very freaking heavy. It's a monolith, megalith by any description. On the list of moved monoliths, as the stone at Baalbek, the unfinished obelisk in Egypt, still attached to the quarry, never moved. Which were the ones actually moved? Well, this is missing from the list. That would be right up near the top. Larger than Pompey's pillar in Alexandria, which was also moved and has a Corinthian Roman capital on top of it. There'll be those, it's, lost technology, but anyway, all right. So we have the largest, heaviest column, single piece column, ever erected. Heavier than any obelisk that was ever moved in Egypt by the Egyptians or by the Romans, who, by the way, took it across the Mediterranean to Rome and did a much more difficult move than what the Egyptians ever did within Egypt. So St Petersburg, Alexander column, right there next to the river. 800 metres away, half a mile, is the Bronze Horseman. Bronze Horseman sits upon the Thunderstone, which is the heaviest stone ever moved in human history. Thunderstone originated not too far away, up here in Latka. Originally found in marshy land, they moved it. Now, this goes back to 1768, just as with the Alexander column, done with ancient tech. There is a point that the lost ancient high technologists will like to bring up about the Thunderstone. Half buried in marshland, was moved with a sled over bronze spheres. So just before frictionless modern bearings as we think, well, they used bronze spheres. The metal and bronze is ancient. This is not an advanced new technology. So for those, but they use that and it doesn't count. Well, I'll put links in the description where they move monoliths just with wooden sleds. But this method of a metal sled, bronze spheres, well, that's ancient tech as well. But the real technique was capstans or winches connected to compound pulleys. That's what was doing the work. This just reduced the friction with the bronze spheres. 400 men, no animals, no machines. However, only 32 men working on the capstans. Originally, this was 1,500 tons, biggest stone ever moved in human history. Now there might be, now heavier lifts have been done, but up to that point, and they were working the stone and reducing the weight as they went. So when they got it to the barge, it was no longer the biggest stone at that point, but to begin with the original move, yes it was. Took 9 months to get to the barge. People point to this, but the boulder was found dug out of marshy land. They had to wait until the ground froze to move it. The 9 months that it took to move would have been interrupted by the warmer parts of the year. They were moving at 150 metres per day. If they had travelled that throughout the 9 months, they would have moved at 40 kilometres during that time. It didn't move 40 kilometres during that time. So it took 9 months, but it was not 9 months of moving. 1,500 tonnes originally, reduced in weight when it eventually got to the barge. They got it on a barge, and then they sailed it in. So they were using the Baltic Sea. Other people would have used the Nile River. Block and tackle and winch. This is ancient technology. Vitruvius, ancient engineer, writing over 21 centuries ago, described these tools as already ancient. They are essential to sailing. This was not a Roman invention. They were already around. The Romans just wrote about it in record, made some innovations maybe, but because they were the first recorded to do it. Yes, okay. How did the Romans move the obelisk? Well, they moved it on a barge up the Nile and then across the Mediterranean, all right? So, and the Egyptian obelisks in Rome, then in the early 1500s, Pope Sixtus V wanted to re-erect one and wanted to move another huge obelisk. These were the biggest obelisks that the Egyptians actually moved. The unfinished obelisk never moved, still attached to the earth. So Thunderstone, up here from Latka, on a barge, bring it up, and then they placed it in there. So again, there will be the Thunderstone itself, the weight will be reduced in the interest of some people, but it's actually 15 feet below ground. And even when it was brought onto site and finished, they still removed a little bit more, but currently 15 feet. So looking at, these are estimates because of the shape of the stone. Still looking, 600 tonne will be the metric tonnes, will be the number, absolute, even reduced, absolute massive stone. So we have the largest stone ever moved again across water. Well, how did the Egyptians do it? How did they they brought it up the Tiber into Rome. But where did the Alexander column come from? Red granite. Well, current day Finland, Virilahti, journey of 165 kilometres, 102 miles. How did they do it? Well, firstly, they carved it there, got the column, got it onto a barge, got the details of the barge there. So again, but the ship doesn't have to be the barge doesn't need to be much bigger at all than what you are moving. Once they got it in, brought it up in the back, bring it up the river on the barge, same as they got it on, they get it off, and then they rolled it up this ramp. You can even see all the ropes that they pulled it up. Again, you can read another way to move columns was to use the column as a wheel, use some ropes, compound pulley system, essentially again, pull it along. So they got it on and they brought it up, and then brought it up this ramp, and then prepared to bring it to the lifting tower, ancient technology lifting tower. So once they got it up the ramp, onto rollers. And there we can see the capstans that they were using, or would be using, to do the lift very soon. They bring it into place, 60 capstans placed around. Lifting tower, ropes will hold, the wood won't crush. This is one of those myths. Okay, and then, well, you see, harnessed it up. You don't need a single kajillion ton rope to lift it. You can make, just like a rope is made up of many individual threads, you get many individual ropes and you can lift absolutely massive weights. That's how they make cable to pull ships across the ocean, not just a nice surface, flat water. When ships are going in the ocean, one ship can go up the wave as the other one is coming down. Now you're lifting it because one's going up, one's coming down. Absolutely massive forces. Men on the capstan, turning the 60 capstans. Rollers to allow it to move as you're lifting up. You're also going to be allowing it to move forward. And then eventually they had to get it on top of the platform. And another thing, this was so finely made and well balanced that it just sits on top. Its own gravity is holding this on top. So capstans connected to compound pulleys, absolutely, without doubt, provable, still works today. This is exactly how a modern crane works. A capstan is basically a gearing system connected to compound pulleys. Now we just have better materials and we don't use labour, we use motors and engines. How did they do this? Well, they were just replicating what was done in Rome 3 centuries before, and these Romans were in Rome, the Pope was replicating what was done 15 centuries before that, and the Romans were using technology that had already existed that was so old at the time, but they did not know the origins of it going back. So ancient sailing technology of capstan and winch plus compound pulleys to erect one of the largest monoliths in the world, the largest single-piece column in the world, heavier, bigger than any Egyptian obelisk that was ever actually moved. Unlike DMT singing levitation priests of lost ancient high technology, this technology actually works. So it is just a myth that ancient tech can't do it. Whether it was the Vatican in the 1500s ordering this, or whether it was the Romans before them, Rome is not a timber-rich area. They had to import the nice big cedars and big timbers from as well. So if you go, but Egyptian were we've got the records Egyptians were importing timbers as well, and especially for a big project like this. So if you want to see the best, most impressive ancient technology monoliths, St Petersburg would be the place to do it. And not only that, this ancient technology is done in the modern era, utilising ancient technology to lift. The heaviest stone ever moved was the Thunderstone, the largest column, bigger than any obelisk ever amongst the Egyptians. The only larger stones would be, for instance, the Ramesseum statue, which is 30% heavier. So just add some men to the capstans, add some ropes, and rig up the frame. Ancient lost high technology. Now we've got this, millions of people are now be singing levitation and but mechanical advantage, and no, we need to find the lost civilization with hallucinogenic magic to do. This only hallucinogenic magic can explain this. But those, if you forget your history, you're doomed to hallucinate imaginary technologies to help you explain and to boost your agenda. This is our recent history. This is our birthright. Lost technology is a scam. It wants you to get drugged up and imagine things and go looking for the little demons or whatever it is, whatever the hell it is they want. I don't know, but if you want to deny you don't like it, well, you're free. Freedom of religion is something I strongly would protect. But if you want to say that your religion defines what actually happens and how things work, then I strongly protest. It's lost high tech. It's either utter ignorance or a deliberate scam to poison history and steal your birthright. SGD, have a good one.